Hey everyone, I'm Amy Connell. Thanks for tuning in to Lessons to My Teenage Self, a Christ centered, diet culture free show about all things health for teen girls. This is the shortcut you need to thrive in your physical, mental, and spiritual health. As a personal trainer and nutrition coach, I'm passionate about empowering you to find your best version of health. Each week, we dig into one topic I wished I'd known as a teen or my guest wishes they had known. Today, I have Emily Skaggs here to talk about relationships and particularly relationships with guys. Let me tell you a little bit about Emily before we get going. She was born and raised in Jonesboro, Arkansas. I think I just botched that. Sorry, Jonesboro. And currently lives in Montgomery, Texas. She has been working in youth ministry since she graduated from college 2 years ago. She has a passion for discipleship and teaching girls how to follow Jesus. Emily, welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. And I feel like in the world of virtual connection, we are kind of neighbors. But if we were to
Right.
drive from our point to point, we are probably almost an hour and a half away from each other.
Yeah, which is kind of the crazy thing of Texas. You can be around the same city and be very far.
Yes, yes, especially in the Houston area. So I am on the furthest south side of Houston, and you are very far north. But I'm glad to have you here in the area because I know you're relatively new here.
Yep, I am literally like a month in. So it's been a good time. It's been kind of crazy, but it's been a really good transition so
Oh,
far.
I'm so glad to hear that. Awesome. Well, I know that you wanted to come on. You are, first tell people real quickly what you do because you are in youth ministry.
Yes, so I am the girls minister at a church here in Montgomery, Texas, and my main job is really to help disciple girls in middle school and high school. Um, my previous job, I was working at a church in Memphis doing just middle school ministry, and so I have been in the trenches, as I like to say, with students just walking through a lot of hard situations and even just using the things that I've experienced in my life to help them know Jesus better.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you're doing that because it is such a hard and complicated time and there's some wonderful aspects about it as well, but I just honor that work that you're doing. So thank you for that. You wanted to share some of your experiences with relationships and particularly relationships with guys. So I was wondering if we could start with you sharing what your dating experience was in high school.
Yeah. So let me preface by saying I was not a believer in high school, although I went to church. I was a very churched child and teenager, but did not really follow Jesus. And so that really helped set the tone for my dating experience in high school. But I dated someone for 4 years, started dating him the summer in between my freshman and sophomore year of high school, and then I up with him at the end of my freshman year of college. And honestly, the thing that I feel like sums up that experience was that I found all of my identity in being his girlfriend. I found all of my identity in being someone who was loved by someone of the opposite sex. I found all of my identity in hanging out with him all the time and being the girl that has the long term boyfriend. And I had no real boundaries with him. It honestly was like we were married in high school without actually being married. And that led to a lot of problems and things I'm still honestly dealing with now. Um, but I wouldn't change anything that I experienced because now I get to use it to do youth ministry. But the my experience in high school was definitely not the best. Like I said, we dated for 4 years, and my third year dating him, I believe it was my senior year of high school, he cheated on me. And that is where honestly I started to spiral out of control. And that relationship honestly led me into a lot of sin. And it started as just sexual sin and like dipping my toe in the water. And the longer we dated, the more it was easier for me to just lay aside these convictions that I had set aside, or the things that I was taught. Because, like I said, I was raised in the church, even though I was not a Christian at this time. And it just caused a lot of hurt, like I said. And whenever he cheated on me, and my entire world was rocked and my entire foundation was shaken, and I didn't know who I was outside of him. And that is something that I wish I wouldn't have experienced, but I know that the Lord is using it even now.
Well, and you started off by sharing how your identity really was in being a long-term girlfriend or a long-term relationship. And so when that is stripped from you, particularly in such a betraying manner, when you have trusted someone, when you have given someone so much of you in many ways, that will rock your world. And I'm so sorry that happened, but at the same time, I know that it is part of your testimony, and it is part of how you are leading young women in what you're doing today. You mentioned that you didn't identify as a Christian then. So I'm curious, like, when and how and where did God meet you? Like, talk to us through about like this relationship where your identity was, and get us to where you are either now or later of when you were, really following Christ.
Yeah, so like I said, all my identity was tied up in this boy, and he when I sorry, when he cheated on me my senior year of high school and things got really bad, I had a really low view of myself. And it was the first time I ever experienced just a lot of anger. And I felt so lost and I felt so shameful. And I honestly was living a double life. And I had been living a double life the entire time that we're dating because on, Monday through Friday, I was going to school and I was this good church girl and like made the good grades and all the things. And on the outside, it looked pretty good. And then on the weekends when I was with him, because we didn't go to the same high school, um, I was just living in so much sin. And no one knew except for me and him, honestly, just the things and the sin that was so deep in my life. And so going back to my senior year of high school, I am in just this really, really dark place. And that continued through the summer. And I came to college my freshman year, not being in a relationship with Jesus. And thankfully, the Lord sent a few girls in my life that really loved Jesus, and their lives looked drastically different. And so they invited me to a Bible study that was with other girls that were in my sorority. And through that, I just started hearing the gospel, the true gospel, for the first time. And I had obviously, growing up in the church, like heard about Jesus and knew who he was. And like, I believed in who Jesus is, but I did not follow him. And I did not know that people could actually live a drastically different life, like a life that is holy, until I met these girls. And so in that, the Lord saved me through this Bible study and through these girls. And honestly, throughout high school, I didn't have a lot of friendships with girls, and because my entire world revolved around this boy, and it stripped me from having really deep friendships with other girls. So when I came to college and I joined a sorority and started going to this Bible study with these girls who love Jesus, I started understanding what real community looks like and what a real healthy friendship and healthy relationship looks like. And so the Lord just met me there in all of my sin and all of my shame, because I, at that point in my life, was going down a very dark path, and the Lord just interrupted it and saved me out of a lot of sin and a lot of shame.
Yeah. And it sounds like you really, your relationship with him got the roots that you needed that maybe you weren't able to have because your focus was elsewhere. And, we will follow wherever our thoughts are. And
Yep.
yeah, yeah. I'm wondering, looking back now that you are several years into your relationship with Jesus and you have a bit more clarity and some space in between now. I mean, you're still young. You've only been out of college a couple years. So,
Yeah.
I mean, young-ish, right? I mean, you're adulting for sure, but I'm wondering what did you learn from dating in high school?
I would definitely say that no one is ever too dirty or too far gone for Jesus to save them. That is the number one thing that I learned. And it definitely took some space and some distance from the situation to see that. And to see that God really does use broken people. And I also learned, and I've been working through this a lot recently, is that God will sometimes allow us to go through something that's really difficult and we don't really understand why or what's happening. And then He'll use that situation for you to be able to share the gospel with someone else, or for you to even just encourage someone else. And I really believe that that's what the Lord did with me. And He allowed me to go through something that was really hard and to be just distracted, I guess, and to know what it is like to be sinful and to be able to meet girls where they are. And one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to go into youth ministry at all was because I felt so much shame. And I really thought my sin was too much for Jesus for a long time. Like I knew that He saved me from it, but it was hard for me to really let go of it, to let go of that shame. Something that I wanted to be was someone who knew what it was like to be the girl that feels dirty, to be the girl that feels shameful, but to now be following Jesus. Because I had awesome leaders in college who loved me, but their story did not look like mine. Their story was not super dirty or messed up. And sometimes I felt like I couldn't talk about the things I was struggling with because no one understood. And so I really believe that the Lord allowed me to experience things so I can minister to them where they are and tell them that you're not dirty, that the Lord calls you clean. And He really put every single sin on the cross.
I think we really do relate more to the vulnerabilities and to the challenges that people have walked through rather than the person who appears to have it all together. I think the secret that nobody says is nobody has it all together.
Right.
But for the we just relate a lot more to that. So Emily, if you don't mind me asking, I know that I have to imagine in being a youth minister to other middle school and high school girls, you're having these conversations and you're probably saying like living in sin and giving more of yourself to a guy is not what God wants for you. How would you, I just have to imagine, like, I'm just kind of thinking of like devil's advocate, which is probably not the right word to say in this Christ-centered conversation, but like, but what about someone who's thinking, okay, but what if I really, I feel like I love this guy and I want to be with him. And so I'm just going to do this. I'm going to, and then I'll just ask for forgiveness later. I'll be redeemed later when, because if I love this person or I feel like I love this person, then it's okay. So with the lens of all of this of like, we are all sinners. We all make mistakes. We all are broken. So I don't want to inflict shame on that conversation, but I'm just kind of thinking from like, but I really love him, like that perspective.
Right.
What would be your guidance to the young woman who is thinking that right now?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say I have been there. Absolutely. Most of my sin that I walked into, I went into it with the mindset of I love him and we're probably going to get married anyway, which praise God, we're not married. I think the biggest thing is that you should not try to toe the line and be in the gray area of sin. And I honestly, this is my opinion. Take it or leave it. I think as Christians, dating in high school is one of the hardest things that you can do for your walk. And it's honestly better to stay single than to put yourself in the way of temptation. But if you are dating someone and you both love Jesus, then you both have to fight for holiness. You both have to commit to not living in the gray area, not seeing like, how far can I go? What is the line? Like, how can I toe the line of sin? Because that's not how God calls us to live. He calls us to be holy, He calls us to be set apart. And when you start, towing the line to sin, one day you're going to cross over it. And then you're going to keep crossing over it and keep crossing over it. And then one day you're going to look up and you're going to be so much further along into sin than you ever anticipated that you would be. And I know a lot of believers who have fallen into this. And just to reiterate, there's no shame. And the Lord sees sin as the same. And so He nailed the sin to the cross with Jesus. I think in this time, it's just really easy for us to feel really shameful for the things that we have done. But also, all that to say, being a Christian in high school is hard. And I think the best way to be a Christian in high school is to limit the amount of temptations that you have, which is really, really hard. It is a lot easier said than done because things in high school, a lot of the things that people want to do are really, really sinful. But it just, in my experience, living the opposite and now getting to work with students all the time and just see their lives, I always say, just don't date in high school. But if you are dating, just seek holiness. Make sure that you are dating in community and that people are in your life and people who love Jesus are speaking over you, because what the enemy wants is for you to be isolated, and that's when you're going to fall into sin.
And the other thing I feel like I can't, I mean, this is another conversation for another day, but, the intimacy that people are all often seeking, just the emotional intimacy, with someone else, like with a guy, we can get that same type of emotional intimacy with girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously it's different, right? But but just investing in those friends, and this has just been on my heart lately, but small groups and really finding those safe spaces with trusted people and leaders, I think can be so helpful in filling that need in your soul. That's kind of that reaching out relationship rather than the vertical one that we're looking for God, and that's kind of where we get that fullness of the cross. So, yeah, I love that. So I would love for you to look back to teenage self Emily, and based on today's conversation, well, first I want you to give you a Bible verse, to do a Bible verse. I forgot about that. Sorry. So I like to ask my guests if they have a Bible verse they would like to share.
Yeah, so this is the verse that brought me to the Lord. Well, it's like two verses, but this is what did it, what made the gospel click. And it is Ephesians 2, verses 8 and 9. And it says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith. This is not your own doing, it is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast."
That's awesome. Yeah. Not by works, not by works.
Not by works.
Yeah, we do not have to prove anything or do anything to get God's love. Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I would love for you to look back to teenage Emily and give one lesson based on today's conversation to your teenage self.
I wish I would have known how much God really loves me and how much He cares and how much He saw me when I was in my sin, and that I was never too far gone and never too sinful, that I was never too dirty for Him, because I felt it. And then I just kept isolating myself even more. And so that is what I wish I would have known, was how loved and seen. And just like you were saying with the emotional connection, that is all I was seeking, was love and acceptance and for someone to think that I was special. But the thing is that you are loved and accepted and seen as special by the Lord. And I wish I would have realized that.
Hmm. That's a great one. Thank you so much, Emily. I'm so glad you came.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, that is all for today. Take today's lesson and go out there and live the life God has for you and your amazing original body. Thanks for tuning in today. Do you have a question you would like answered here on the Lessons to My Teenage Self podcast? If so, go to the show notes where you will see an anonymous form you can fill out, and that question may be answered here on the show. Also, if this show is valuable to you, could you do one of two things that are enormously valuable to me? Number one, share it with a friend. Just take a screenshot, send it to her, or you can go to the show and send it straight from there. Also, if you can provide a rating and review, particularly if you listen to your podcast in Apple Podcasts. Thanks again, and see you next time.